A server confronted me in the men's room when I didn't tip him on top of the 18% minimum, and wanted to fight me. Reddit, what is your most WTF customer service experience? So the past weekend we went to a restaurant for dinner, with my girlfriend and her friends for her birthday. We had about 10 people and had about 5 different tabs, which all included an 18% minimum tip. The service was terrible, the server was incredibly rude, and would always respond with some kind of sarcasm when we asked questions about the menu. He took the wrong drink orders twice, and blamed us for getting them wrong. Brought all the apps and entries at the same time, and got upset when we said we didn't want the apps anymore. My friend paid in cash, and when he brought back change, there was no receipt. She was expecting to see $5 and some change back. When the server came back there was no receipt, and only $4 and change there. She asked him to see the receipt to see if she had miscalculated, cause she expected $5 and then some back. Instead of saying something along the lines of, "I'll go check," or something accommodating like that, the dude got irritated, and said that he threw away the receipt, and reached for his wallet and said, "How about I just give you $1, if you want it that bad?" That pissed us all off, so we didn't leave any extra tip. I wrote down nope on my receipt in the additional tip line. When I went to use the men's room before leaving, he tapped my shoulder as I was washing my hands and goes, "You think you're pretty funny with that tip, don't you? Why don't we step outside so I can show you how funny I can be?" I'm like, what the duck? Called the manager over and told him her server wanted to fight me cause I didn't tip him. Explained the whole situation to her, while the dude was just eye-ducking me the whole time. Other servers had to calm him down, cause he kept trying to interrupt me when I was talking to the manager. I declined all their gift cards, cause duck I don't wanna come back to a place where the staff is gonna shank me. TLDR. Shitty service at restaurant. No tip for server. Dude follows me to the bathroom, and wants to fight me to earn that tip. My parents and I decided to try a new, trendy pizza place right around the corner from my apartment, one night last month. We decided to sit outside because the weather was nice, and they had a big patio and a side deck. Everyone working at this place had an attitude, from the hostess who seated us, to the waitress taking our orders. They made us feel like a huge inconvenience, but we were hungry and had heard the pizza was good, so we tried to look past that. As soon as we are seated on the patio, the girl offers to lower the shades, because the sun was setting and was directly in our line of sight. We say that would be great, and a guy comes out and lowers the blinds for us. We order our drinks and look over the menu. Not even 5 minutes later, a young guy comes to our table, incredibly pissed off that the blinds were lowered. In a very condescending manner, he tells us that he's going to have to raise the blinds, because they trap heat in the patio, ultimately raising the patio temperature about 20 degrees. My dad politely tells him that the sun is in our eyes, and that they really shouldn't offer to lower the shades if it's going to cause a problem. The guy snaps. He is incredibly disrespectful toward my father, and goes on a tangent assuring us that the sun would set, and even going as far as to take his sunglasses off of his head and offering them to my dad. He's young, maybe 25, and treating us like we're imbeciles, saying that our request to lower the shades would make the other customers less comfortable. Whatever, they raise the blinds, and we question whether or not we'll stay to order food. We stay. Our drinks arrive, and we take a few more minutes to look over the menu. The waitress is nowhere to be found. We sit there in awkward silence trying to get past what had just happened. Other tables are seated, and the hostess offers to lower the shades for each table. We finish our drinks, and the waitress still hasn't returned to take our order. We contemplate leaving, but she finally shows and we order. The food came out cold, but one of the managers was walking around asking how everything was. We told him about the sunglasses prick, and he was furious. I haven't seen the guy working there since. TLDR, entitled douche treats us like shit, most likely got fired. Getting away from restaurants. Last year I was going through the self-checkout at Kroger late one night. There were a few other people at said self-checkout, but it was far from busy. I attempted to scan an item that was on clearance, and it brings up the wait for attendant message. I see the kid working in the section talking to another co-worker about 20 feet away. The hand modules they use have an ignore function, so they don't have to come over every time someone doesn't know how to use the machines, 95% of the time. Dude hits the ignore button. I know it wasn't gonna scan without his approval, so I hit the call attendant button. He presses ignore again. This happens 8 times. When I finally went over to ask him for help, he bolted to the back before I could catch him. I wasn't pissed, just annoyed. So I left the self-check to go get in a regular line. Just so happened that a manager was walking by and asked if I was having issues since I was leaving self-checkout. I told her what had happened and she was furious. Never saw that kid at Kroger again. I was at an awesome barbecue place in Fort Worth with a bunch of friends. Our server was a bit goofy. He was funny, really nice, but kind of distant. He just seemed like he didn't seem suited to waiting tables. He got our drinks and orders wrong, but it was hard to be upset. The what the duck moment wasn't bad or good. It was just weird. He had a huge red beard, and I said, "Do it, your beard is awesome." He then said, "Thanks. My neighbor has one just like it. Some people think he's my dad, but he's not my dad. I've met my dad." Then he just walked away without saying anything. I used to be a hostess in a pizzeria chain that based out of Chicago. I came to work in one in New York, and I'll never forget this family of 8 gave me, the hostess, a $25 tip on a $50 bill, all because they hated their waitress, and I was the one that kept refilling their drinks. Waitress was beyond pissed, but manager said to her, "Should have been paying more attention. The tips is hers." Best day ever. I'm from New Hampshire. When I was going to college in Florida, I had a gas station cashier refuse to sell me cigarettes because I showed her my ID and she didn't believe that New Hampshire was a state. Well, I have one from the opposite side. I used to work at the cancellation depth of a major ISP, who shall remain nameless. Our shtick was basically they call, try to cancel, we either talk them out of it, or bribe them out of it with free time, or refunds or whatever it takes. Now, it was a stressful job, because this ISP sucked, and because it was lower end, and the customers tended to be not on the more technical side of things. So, we got a great variety of calls that made us feel like shit on a daily basis. Once, when the servers were down, I spent 12 hours getting screamed at by people because I couldn't cancel their accounts. One man put every single member of his entire family of 5 on the phone to scream at me. Sigh. Anyway, this one time, I get a woman. She sounds young, and she has a cutesy email address. I go into my shtick about her bill, and how it's important to have internet. I hear kids, so I go into the whole important for school thing. So, I try that. She's pretty nice, and tells me that she would love to keep it but she can't. So, I go through the whole, well, if it's something we can fix yada yada. Nope. She tells me that her and her 2 sons are just moved into a homeless shelter, and that her husband died. She really wants to keep the account, and she wants to desperately keep the email because she has a bunch of resumes out. But she can't even afford the $2 to keep the email account open. So, I put her on hold and go to cancel her account. I must have sat there for a few seconds thinking. Just staring at her billing history. She had paid religiously. So I had an idea. I refunded her every single payment she had ever made. It took me a little while, and when I went back to the phone I tried explaining to her that because of her financial trouble she was getting a refund. She didn't understand at first. I had to repeat myself a few times, and then explain exactly what I had done. Her card had been cancelled because of non-payment. But I had just dumped several $100s in refunds into it. I had paid off her credit card. She wept. Not just sobs, or sniffles. Openly wept like a child. It got all emotional, thanking me and crying. and having her little kids say thank you. It was nice. TLDR, I made a woman in a homeless shelter cry. Once I went to a place known for its Cuban sandwiches with my family. We were all really excited because we like food in my family. So we get our drinks and everything seems fine. We were seated immediately and everyone was really nice. Our waitress brings us our drinks and says she'll be back in a bit to take our food orders. We're conversing and such, so we don't notice immediately how long it is taking for our waitress to come back. We wait another 20 minutes just in case. The place is pretty empty, so eventually we ask another server if they know what happened to our server. He says he'll go check, but that he'll take our food orders if we're ready to speed up the process. Things seem on the up and up, so we stop worrying. About 45 minutes later my dad is about to explode. It doesn't take that long to make 4 sandwiches. He's about to go complain when, as if on cue, our waitress comes running and screaming out of the kitchen and goes right on out the front door. Everyone goes completely silent and just watches the front door for a couple seconds. It turns out she had a nervous breakdown right about when we ordered her food. She had been just pacing around in the kitchen slowly becoming unhinged. The manager apologized and we got free sandwiches. The moral of the story though, is that you never know what is going on with your server. Maybe they are doing a bad job, but they might be on the edge of snapping entirely. Buffalo Wild Wings. Had a waitress forget my order twice. I was with a party of 8 people. Everyone finished before I got my food. When the manager came back for a 3rd time, asking what I ordered, I stood up and said, nothing and nothing ever again, and my wife and I left. They ended up camping the entire table, but the waitress said, way to be a donk, as my friends were leaving. Last weekend I went to the beach with my friend. We had booked a hotel room with 2 queen beds. For whatever reason, there was an administrative error, and the hotel had forgotten to reserve our room. We get there, and there are no rooms with 2 beds left. The front desk agent was very apologetic, and offered us an extra room at no charge, because they ducked up, and told the owner of the place moseyed on in, and instead said, no, if you want 2 rooms, you're going to pay for 2 rooms, and asked us why we couldn't just sleep together in a king bed, which is not really his business. And if we wanted to share a bed we would have booked a room with 1 bed instead of specifically booking a room with 2. If we had known they were out of rooms, we would have gone somewhere else. At that point he insisted on us staying in 1 room with a cot, which I said was bullshit, because one of us is sleeping on a cot, and it's not something we agreed to pay for. Eventually, after 2 hours of arguing, he ducked off, and his son, who is the part owner and the one who suggested giving us 2 rooms for the cost of 1 in the first place, let us have 2 rooms. His dad is clearly in the wrong ducking business.